Pedro from A&P-REACTS. I'm here today with Dino of Fear Factory to talk about Aggression Continuum, out June 18th on Nuclear Blast. How's it going?
Oh, it's going great. Sitting here in sunny California.
Well, I'm in dark, cloudy Toronto in Canada. The weather is shitty, as always.
I love Toronto. We've had many great shows there.
I'm looking forward to see you guys on the road at some point in time soon, hopefully playing some tracks of this new record. And let's get right into it. How dark and bleak was the road to the final destination of this album?
Good question. It was definitely dark because we, at some point, probably thought that this record was not going to come out, as a Fear Factory record. Sure, maybe it could have came out as something else, changed the name, but I stuck it out and I decided to fight all the way to the bitter end. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you didn't give up at all. I mean, there's a lot.
No, I mean,
there's a lot writing.
There was a lot of sacrifices that we had to go through to just for this record to come out. Maybe a lot of people know, maybe a lot of people don't know, but we went through a lot of legal lawsuits, regarding the trademark and money, bankruptcies, divorces, you name it. There was a point where I even thought I was going to lose my career, just because of all the legal stuff that was going on. But the positive side is that we made it through. I regained the trademark ownership of the trademark in July of 2020, and right then I got to work. The record has been kind of shelved for 3 or 4 years, right? So I decided to contact the record company. I said, hey, we need to make some improvements. They agreed, and we did. Andy Sneap mixed the record. We went back and recorded real drums because the previous version only had programmed drums. So we removed the programmed drums, put real drums. Definitely made a big difference, huge difference. And then we got my friend Damien Renaud, who was a French producer, engineer. He's worked with us since The Industrialist. Got him back, and I also got Reese Fulber, who's from Frontline Assembly. He's a programmer. Got him back on the record as well too. So all that cost a good amount of money, but I was able to pull it off, and I'm just very thankful that the record is going to come out.
Looking back at all of that process, I mean, you had a lot of writing on it. You have the name, the brand, everything that you've put into this band along all the career and the history of the band. Did you think that everything that I'm going to go through is going to be worth it at the end, because I want this to be a Fear Factory record and not just whatever X name band associated with the release?
Well, it for sure, 100% worth it. If you go back to even when I first, moved to Los Angeles, I moved here to be a professional musician, professional guitar player. I had to live on the streets for 6 months. Those are the sacrifices you make just to get to where you want to go. And yes, to me, it was worth living on the streets to be in a band like Fear Factory and many of the other projects that I've worked on. So yeah, this road, this legal road that I went through just to get this record out was nothing compared to living on the streets.
When you look at the 30-year career that you've had, that the band has had, was this the most challenging moment of that 30-year history?
Yes, because you just don't know which way the legal system's going to go for you. You know what I mean? You don't know what the outcome is going to be. So yeah, it's definitely more challenging. It was, there were times where the stress was insane. Having to go to the hospital because I'm thinking I'm having a heart attack, but it's just panic attacks and caused by stress and things like that. So yeah, it was definitely taxing in other ways. You know what I mean? Physically and mentally, emotionally, financially, you know what I mean? So yeah, it was probably one of the most challenging things I've ever been through, for sure.
Nobody obviously knows the band as well as you do. So when you look at this record now, the final product that you have here on your hands, what sets this album apart from the previous records?
Well, first of all, the struggle.
For sure.
But I think, one of the cool elements of this record is that one of the things is it's pissed off. It's got a pissed off element from the very beginning, from the opening line. imagine your life taken from you. Now, to me, it reminds me of the anger that we had in Demanufacture. The opening line of Demanufacture is desensitized by the values of life. You know, it still has that element, that angst of when we were first starting. And I'm very happy that we were able to really convey that in the music. You know what I mean? But what stands out to me is, you know, it's still part of the relationship between human and AI, and just where we are now with that situation. You know, even though that we were, you know, talking about the future elements way back during obsolete and stuff like that, we kind of, you know, take it to another level as far as the concept.
And you mentioned already Andy Sneap being involved in this record. Not the first time you've worked with him. What do you feel he adds to the Fear Factory sound?
Knowledge of tone, knowledge of EQ. He knows the guitars really well. He knows drums really well. I had never used Andy Sneap before till Genexus, and I was, you know, I was excited. But anybody you use, you know, you don't know how they're going to interpret your sound. You know what I mean? If they're going to improve it, they're going to make it worse. Blah 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 blah. But after we used Andy Sneap on Genexus, and just having, you know, a lot of communication with him and what we wanted and blah blah blah, he took those tones and he took it to another level. So that's the reason why I wanted to use him again on this record. And again, he proved me that you know, he's the guy.
He improves on the quality that you guys already had to begin with.
Yeah, of course, the tones have to be there when you first record, right? But then you have somebody that creates that balance. And then when you start EQing things like drums, guitars, and vocals, you gotta find their spot. Some guys, you know, not everybody's the same, but, you know, Andy Sneap has that knowledge of where everything should sit in a mix. And of course, he's going to EQ your guitar. I like it because he EQs my guitar very crunchy, the way I love it. And he knows like, so there's a challenge when you're doing syncopated drums with guitar. There's a challenge because if you get the frequencies wrong, they're going to battle each other. So a guy like him who has that kind of knowledge knows exactly where to put those tones and those frequencies so things don't start fighting each other. And as you can hear, it's a very clean mix.
Very clean. And considering how much layers you have on the record, I mean, we're not talking about a punk album here where it's straightforward. I mean,
No.
There's a lot of stuff for the listener to process and digest when you're listening to this record. So it's not an easy balance to find where you're going to get a record that you can listen to how it sounds as a global piece, but at the same time, you're able to digest all the single elements that are going into it.
Yeah, well, a lot of people haven't heard the record yet. So, you know, like a song like Disruptor is probably a little bit less challenging of a song to do. But when you get into the other songs like Recode, that thing has got like, I don't know how many keyboards are on that track, but there's a lot. And there's a lot of violin and cello and
yeah, the cello.
And, yeah, a lot of sound effects. A song like that is very challenging to mix. And you know, only certain guys really know how to get in there and just balance everything out. And Andy Sneap's one of those guys. I just love going to that guy, and I think he's going to be working with me for a long time.
You're taking me into my next question, which is when I was starting to listen to the record, I really love the fact that the album has this cinematic vibe to it from the beginning, but it doesn't really overshadow everything else that is happening. It doesn't overshadow the drums. It doesn't overshadow the guitars, the vocals. It's there, but it's just another layer in the overall sound. Is that balance found really by him alone, or how much input do you get into finding that balance?
Well, I mean, when we give him the stuff to mix, you know, it's kind of has a little bit of balance, you know what I mean? But it's his job to make sure that they don't compete with each other. And that's difficult to do, especially when there's probably like about 30, 40 layers of different stuff going on, you know what I mean, in a song like Recode. You know, it's very cinematic. It's, to me, one of the most epic songs, and it's a great opener for the album. Yeah, so I think that, you know, it's definitely very challenging. And don't get me wrong, we even had like 50 stuff, but we took out 20 other things, you know what I mean? So we make that decision before he even mixes it, you know. Okay, is this gonna, do we need this here? You know, do we need that there? Because there's so much stuff going on. So once we take off some of the layers and make it a little bit more easier, it makes it easier for him.
I felt that that song, by the way, was a great introduction to the album because it kind of works almost as a synopsis of what the record is going to be all about. It has a little bit of everything that it's like looking at the menu. You kind of get an idea of everything that the restaurant is going to serve you or has the possibility of serving you. You know what I mean? So it kind of works a little bit like that.
Well, you know, a song like Recode, it kind of definitely does set the tempo of the record, what it's going to be like. It's usually like, you know, this hardship that you go through, and then somewhere in the middle, boom, I break free, you know, and I'm free from all these things that are going on around me. And so there's always this negative and positive pull on a lot of the songs. You know what I mean?
I felt that the drums on this record were the motor and the guitars were the gas pedal. Is that a fair take, or do you see it differently?
No, I see it exactly the same. But I do see it, you know, yeah, because without the gas pedal, you can't get that motor going, right?
Yeah, you can't run the motor, right? Like the two are interconnected.
It's funny you say that because there's a song called Fuel Injected Suicide Machine.
One of my favorites.
Which is based off the, I don't know if you ever saw the first Mad Max movie.
Yes.
There's a character in the beginning of the movie called the Knight Rider. Mm-hmm. And he's got that really nice hot rod car, and he's racing down the street, and he's plowing over anything that's in his way. But when they call, you know, the Mad Max, and he realizes that Mad Max is coming after him, his whole life changes. But that song is about him, about how he sees what's going on and his interpretation of, like, you know, he knows he's going to die, basically.
How much of a game plan, as far as the guitars go, for a record like this, how much of a game plan do you have when you start ironing out all the details of the record that you have, that you envision, that you want to put together? Or do you allow yourselves a little bit of freedom and be a little bit more organic once you enter the studio?
Well, you know, a lot of it's already probably mostly written before we even hit the studio, you know, just at home, you know what I mean? But sometimes you can have, for me, for instance, a song title inspires me, you know? Fuel Injected Suicide Machine. What's that going to sound like? It's going to have a really fast groove, like an engine, you know? So some of those, the title can really inspire me to write something that kind of like I envision, or I have a picture of what that should sound like. And I love that, you know what I mean? I love, you know, writing that way, or a song title, or maybe even a drum beat, or a movie, or a book, or just walking down the street and I'm hearing stuff in my head. So it comes from all different areas to, you know, write a song for Fear Factory.
Do you have a favorite on this record? I know it's hard to pick a favorite because I'm sure all of them are like your kids, but is there one that stands out for you on this album?
Probably the title track, Aggression Continuum. It's probably my favorite. The middle part where Bert says, System Assassin. System Assassin. You know, like that whole midsection to me is like, it adds it kicks off another part of the song, you know what I mean? Because you have the intro, then the song kicks in, right, and then it goes into the verse and then the chorus, blah blah. Then the midsection comes in, and boom, and it takes off again. You know, that's how I like writing songs, and that's kind of like one of my favorite on the record. But then again, I like the whole record, so you know what I mean.
Like I was saying before, they're all your kids, right? It's kind of hard to pick a favorite one. Me personally, I mean, I had nothing to do with this album, and listen to the record, I can't pick a favorite. I really like. I mean, there's some that I like more than others, but the record is really strong as a whole. It's not really an album made of singles. It's an album that just really strong from top to bottom.
Yeah, that's kind of like how I like to write records or put records together in the song sequence. When I think of putting a record together, I like it where the whole album is like one big long song, right? Where he starts off with the intro and it gets epic, and then it goes into the banger. You got all this energy in the middle, and then it kind of like grooves out somewhere down there, and then and then towards the end, it's like this epic part at the end. I kind of look at it, the record, as a whole song.
Do you spend a lot of time on the track listing then, putting everything together for the album to have the perfect flow so it doesn't feel chopped or broken?
Sometimes yes, sometimes it's just like, okay, wow, this sequence is great. Just you nail it the first time. And sometimes when you're writing songs, you're like, okay, that's the opener. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I chose Recode as the opener instead of Aggression Continuum because either one of them could have been the opener, right? But I just thought Recode was just more epic and just intense. It's got the 8 string. It starts off with the 8 string, which is massive, and so it's a thicker tone. And I was like, okay. And then the chorus is really good. And I think Bert's first vocal line, imagine your life taken from you. That I thought, okay, just that line was good to describe what was to come on the record.
Yeah, and it grabs.
So that's why I chose Recode.
Yeah. Aggression Continuum, I feel like it's perfect where it is too, because it makes the second half of the album, if you're looking at a vinyl, side A, side B, it makes that second half as strong as the first half because it almost works in the same way. It's almost like a reboot of the album in the middle.
And every journalist that I spoke to has a different song they love. One guy likes Purity. One guy likes Manufactured Hope. One guy likes, Collapse, which is another 8-string banger. It's a really slow groove. And it's just, yeah. It sounds like, it sounds like when you're trying to demolish a building, Collapse.
It just has a lot of that vibe to it. Like I said, it's an album that you could close your eyes and pick a song. You're not gonna find a bad one.
Correct.
Yeah. I know you've talked about this. I've saw some of your interviews, and you've talked about the future of the band. And as you look beyond this record, you're obviously looking for a lead singer. Is there something that you're looking for specifically? Do you have a checklist that you're like kind of ticking?
Besides being able to sing, yeah, there's important. There's other elements. Of course, we got to see if we have the right chemistry with the person. You know what I mean? Do we get along with them? Are they going to be able to handle being on the road? For 6 months at a time, going all the way to Toronto.
Well, I hope so.
Can they handle Toronto? I don't know. We got to see.
Canadians are crazy, so we definitely are a handful, if you will.
All joking aside, you want that right guy who really wants to be there, who really wants the job, and of course, talent, and you want someone who's going to best represent 30 years of Fear Factory.
Are you looking outside the box, or you're looking more in terms of the traditional guys that people? Because I've seen some names being thrown out there, and I feel like those are kind of like the usual suspects. Are you thinking somebody more that people are not even thinking about?
Definitely. I'm thinking about people that people don't even know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. He's just a local guy in a local band, kind of like how Journey did with their lead singer. They found him in, I believe it was the Philippines. The Philippines.
I think he won some singing contest or something like that.
No, he was in a cover band, a Journey cover band.
Oh, wow. I thought it was
and they just played at a local bar, Journey songs, and the guy sounded amazing. And so I believe Neil Sean saw him on YouTube.
Oh, wow. Oh.
Yeah, and they flew him out, tried him out. This guy was amazing. He knew all the songs. He was great. And that's a complete nobody. You know what I mean? All the way in the Philippines. And I'm looking for everything. You know what I mean? Whoever fits the job, whoever can handle the job and wants to do the job, and whoever we have chemistry with, that's who I'm into. So it could be male, female, it could be anybody.
Last question for you. 30 years of Fear Factory. What are your hopes and dreams for the next 30 years?
Well, I hope I'm alive. That's one thing.
Hey, we're all on that same boat.
I'll be 80 in 30 years. So hopefully I'll be there. I just want to continue what we started. And I feel that I'm a great representative of continuing this legacy that we started back in 1990. Find a new singer, write some new songs, get on the road as soon as this COVID thing is completely behind us. Get out there and show the world and put a smile on people's faces. To me, that's to me, that success was when you can actually make somebody happy with the music that you create. To me, that's success. So I can't wait to go out there and just put smile on people's faces that they can hear these songs best represented in its best possible way.
And nothing takes away or substitutes that live interaction between the band and the fans. Like being there in the front row, watching you guys play, you watching the faces of the fans. Nothing substitutes that.
No, not at all. I mean, of course, I get a lot of enjoyment creating new music, writing in the studio, working with other people. Yeah, I get a big enjoyment out of that. But once you get out there and you see the appreciation of the fans who like what you do and like the hard work that it takes, to create this music, and they, people tattoo the lyrics on their arm, they tattoo the logos on their back, they tattoo the album cover on their chest, stuff like that. You're just every day I'm blown away by fans when they do stuff like that. I'm just blown away, and that's something that I want to continue, and I love it, and I'm glad that they love it too.
Well, let's hope for another 30 years. I know 80 is a big number, but I'm sure you can still be touring. I mean, the Rolling Stones do it. I'm sure you can pull it off. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. And I hope to see you in Toronto at some time soon once this whole thing is over. And I just want to say thank you for taking the time today to chat about the record and chat about the band. All the best.
Hey, thank you for giving me the exposure for all this. I appreciate it. I watch your show, so keep it up.
Man. Anytime. You always have a home here.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Have a good one.